Welcome to one of my favorite chapters. Hopefully I haven't said that for every one of them, but I want to start with the quote. Again, it's from Michael Singer, The Untethered Soul book, incredible book. Here's the quote. It's bad enough that your happiness is conditional upon your own behavior. When you start making it conditional upon other people's behavior, you're in serious trouble. And end quote. And that just was like a bomb going off. In my past, just 5 years ago, I would allow so many other people and conditions and situations to determine and dictate my level of quality of day, my happiness. And I realized going through all these books and studying that I don't have to do that. I can be responsible for my own level of happiness and joy. So, great book, highly recommended. So we're going to talk about words. Words are very important. And something I discovered through reading was that when we speak, the part of the brain that processes what we say can't differentiate between fact and imaginary, truth or joking, sincerity or insincerity. It processes the words we say at face value. Now, for me, when I discovered that, it was a little scary. I was like, oh no. The words we speak out loud are indicators to our minds what we deem as important, valuable, positive or negative, important, funny, serious, sarcastic. Critically important to know is that your brain can't decipher your feelings about what you're saying. It only can hear the words and then processes them as though they're legitimate. So just use that alone as a filter, and that'll change what you say. For an example, this is common in a lot of books about this, is that when we say to someone, I'm terrible at remembering names, what the mind says is like, oh, he does not want to remember names. He just said it. So we're going to reinforce the fact that we're terrible at remembering names. And so what I started doing is, and people that have been around me have probably heard me say it, is I say, I'm getting better at remembering names. Because I don't want my mind to reinforce like, hey, he does not want to remember names well. I help with our volunteers at my church. I got to remember a lot of names. And if I'm constantly saying, I'm terrible at remembering names, my brain is going to reinforce that. And I don't want that. So I want to say, I'm getting better at remembering names. As silly as that can sound, that's really what's happening. In Philippians 4, Paul writes about, and we talked about this in an earlier chapter, think on things that are true, honest, just, pure, lovely, good report, virtuous, and worthy of praise. And so when we think on those things, when we set those type of things before our eyes and into our ears, ultimately that's what comes out of our mouth. And so it's important that we're conscious of what we're watching, how much social media we're on, the type of people around. We talked about that quite a bit. And so a good quote from a book called The Creative Act. I mentioned it in an earlier chapter from Rick Rubin, the music producer. His quote is this: never say, I can't do this. Instead, say, I haven't done this yet. So what it does is it realigns your mind, that malleable mind that we have, that I'm not going to say I can't do this. I just haven't done it yet. And it programs our minds into more of a positive, healthier way. Even Proverbs 23 says, for as a man thinks within himself, so he is. So we have to be intentional about the way we think, about that self-dialogue that goes on. And I believe that generates a lot of those thoughts, feelings, and emotions that we've discussed. Ephesians 4:29 says, do not let any unwholesome thing come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up according to their needs, so that it may benefit those who listen. Now, I don't know about you, but I can guarantee you that 100% of the things that come out of my mouth are not building people up. So I have to be very, very careful. I have to catch myself. Romans 12 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so the words we speak, remember, our minds just reinforce within itself the words that we say. And I have been in mid-conversation with someone or a group of people and realized that what I was doing, what I was saying, I needed to change. And I have, in the mid-conversation, rerouted myself because I became mindful in the middle of it that I'm not doing my values. I am going into an old habit, and those pathways are still there. Those old ones, they don't go away. They just, weeds grow over them, but they're still accessible. So if you're not careful, you can find yourself rerouting yourself back to old ways. We want to be mindful and keep ourselves conscious of what we're saying. So one of these paragraphs here says, sometimes you'll be able to initiate conversation with a healthy mindset, but sometimes it'll be after the situation has begun or the conversation has ended. It's okay. Just if it happens at the beginning or in the middle or even towards the end, if you catch yourself saying things that go against your values, if they are more in line with an old habit that you were trying to get out of, you're probably going to, from time to time, slip into those old habits. Just catch it and redirect it, reroute it, and apply your new habit with your new values. In the application section, it says, just know you're always programming or coding your mind. Always. Whether you know it or not. You're always giving your mind instruction. You're always telling your mind, hey, this is what I want to think. This is how I want to believe about myself. And we have to be intentional about what we say. The mind is always trying to find ways to be as efficient and fast. It's always trying to shift things over into an autopilot mode, which is our habits. So just know that it's always looking for clues. Your mind is very clever. It's very smart. It's very adaptive. And it's totally under the direction and orders of you. And a lot of that comes from the words we say. And that is very important. It also gets clues from the things we watch, from the people we're around, the type of social. We've discussed that a lot. So this is where intentionality, mindfulness, awareness, values, all these things have built up to this, that the words we say, from the heart, the mouth speaketh. So the words are a culmination. It's the end product. It's the result of the assembly line. No matter if we're intentional or unintentional, it's going to happen. So why not make it do what you need it to do to make you become the best version of you? So that's the end goal. That's what we're trying to do. I had to get in the habit of being intentional with the words I used about myself. We have, a lot of us, I know myself, have a tendency to kind of, we feel we're being, what's the word I'm looking for? We're trying to be humble, but what we're really doing is we're downgrading ourselves in our minds, and then our minds start to believe that, and ultimately we act out in those ways, and then ultimately we speak that, and then it just recycles. So make sure you're not downgrading yourself thinking you're being humble. You don't have to be arrogant, but don't talk down about yourself. Jordan Peterson, in his book, 12 Rules for Life, says this. One of his chapters is entitled, Don't Lie. Always tell the truth, or at least don't lie. And I believe that's critical about yourself. You don't have to blow yourself up, but don't talk yourself down. There's a great balance. So just remember, all those thoughts that we have, 7,500,000 thoughts, translate into the words we say about ourselves. So be conscious of what you're setting before your eyes, the people you're around, that we're catching ourselves even in mid-conversation, and we're redirecting back into our new habit, and that'll translate out into the words we say. So you got some questions at the end. You've got some thoughts. Hopefully you got some good thoughts on this one that you write down, and I'm very interested in what you have to say, you can reach out and email ampsims74@gmail.com. Let me know. Thank you, and we'll see you at the next one.